February 14th, 1977, Katherine, Northern Territory, Australia. A baby boy enters the world, named Cadel after 3 Welsh kings. Nobody could have predicted that this child, born in the red dust of the outback, would one day stand atop the podium on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, draped in the yellow jersey of the Tour de France champion. This is the story of Cadel Evans, the mountain biker who became a road racing legend. The perennial second-place finisher who refused to accept that destiny. Over the course of this video, we'll trace the arc of Cadel Evans' remarkable journey, the struggles, the setbacks, and ultimately, the triumph that defined a nation's sporting identity. At age 7, Cadel was kicked in the head by a horse, suffering a depressed skull fracture. The injury was severe enough that doctors induced a coma for 7 days. It was touch and go. Evans' parents weren't sure their son would survive, and if he did, what kind of life he would lead. But Cadel pulled through. The accident left no lasting physical damage, though one wonders if it forged something in his character. A toughness. A refusal to be defeated by circumstances beyond his control. During his teenage years in Melbourne, Cadel showed interest in skateboarding, like many kids of his age. But at age 14, something changed. He discovered mountain biking, and immediately something clicked. The sensation of speed, the technical challenges, the outdoor environment, it all resonated with something deep inside him. Later, in his biography, Evans would describe those early rides as moments of pure freedom, comparing trail riding to nature's roller coaster. In 1995, at age 18, Cadel Evans' life changed dramatically. He earned a scholarship to the Australian Institute of Sport's mountain bike program. The AIS was the gold standard for developing Australian athletes across multiple sports, and being selected was both an honor and an opportunity. It was at the AIS where sports scientists made a remarkable discovery. Physiological testing revealed that Evans possessed an extraordinarily high lung volume, combined with an exceptional ability to absorb oxygen from each breath, better than 99.9% of the population. These were exceptional, rare gifts that placed Evans in the physiological elite of endurance athletes. Under the guidance of coach Damian Grundy, he developed a professional approach to racing that would serve him throughout his career. Grundy emphasized attention to detail, preparation, and the importance of always presenting yourself as a professional. The results came quickly. In 1995, Evans won a bronze medal at the Junior World Mountain Bike Championship in Germany. He also secured bronze at the Junior World Road Time Trial Championship. Over the next 2 years, he continued to improve, winning silver at the U23 World Championships in both 1997 and 1999. But the breakthrough years were 98 and 99. During this period, Evans was simply dominant. He won the UCI Mountain Bike World Cup overall classification in both years, becoming the rider to beat on the international circuit. During much of 1998 and 1999, he simultaneously held both the overall World Cup leaders jersey and the U23 leaders jersey, a rare feat that demonstrated his superiority across age categories. His mountain bike dominance, Evans was thinking about pavement. The allure of road cycling, the Grand Tours, the classics, the history, was calling to him. Mountain biking had given him success, but road racing offered something more, the chance to test himself against the best in the world on the sport's biggest stages. In 1999, Evans entered the Tour of Tasmania as a road racer. It was during this race that legendary cycling commentator Phil Liggett made a statement that would become famous. Quote, "This young man will win the Tour de France one day."
In 2001, Cadel Evans made the leap to full-time road cycling, signing with the Seiko team. But it was his move to Mapei Quickstep in 2002 that would prove transformative, because it brought him into the orbit of Aldo Sassi. Sassi wasn't your typical cycling coach. A scientist by training, he had earned a master's degree in 1982 and had been involved in coaching since that same year. His approach was data-driven, methodical, and uncompromising in its focus. The relationship between Evans and Sassi would last nearly a decade and fundamentally shape Evans' career. Sassi saw in Evans not just exceptional physiology, but the psychological makeup of a champion. However, he knew that transforming a mountain biker into a Grand Tour champion would require meticulous planning and patience. Quote, "What's happening in an athlete's head is the most important thing. You don't put all your faith in heart rate or power outputs. This approach, combining cutting-edge science with psychological understanding, was exactly what Evans needed. Under Sassy's guidance, Evans began the slow transformation from mountain biker to Grand Tour contender. In 2002, at the Giro, his first Grand Tour, Evans wore the pink jersey as leader of the GC for one day and finished 14th overall. From 03 to 04, Evans rode for T-Mobile, but he maintained his relationship with Sassy. When he joined Lotto in 2005, the partnership continued. That year, Evans made his Tour de France debut and shocked the world by finishing 8th overall. In 2006, he finished 4th. By 2007, he won the UCI Pro Tour Championship, demonstrating consistency across an entire season, and finished 2nd at the Tour de France behind Alberto Contador. Sassy's influence on Evans cannot be overstated. He transformed a mountain bike champion into one of the world's most consistent riders.
We're going to dig into how Cadel Evans established himself as a legitimate Tour de France contender. In 2007, he entered the race of confidence. Alberto Contador of Discovery Channel was the favorite. Evans believed he could challenge for the overall victory. The 2007 Tour was a thriller. Evans rode brilliantly, winning the Stage 13 individual time trial. Evans finished 2nd, just 23 seconds behind the Spanish rider after 3 weeks of racing. Evans had become the first Australian ever to reach the Tour de France podium. It was a historic achievement, but standing on that second step, watching Contador celebrate, Evans couldn't help but feel the sting of how close he'd been. The 2008 Tour offered redemption, or so it seemed. Contador's Astana team wasn't invited to the race due to the team's doping scandals. This was Evans' chance. Racing for Silence Lotto, he was among the pre-race favorites. Evans rode masterfully in the first 2 weeks, seizing the yellow jersey as leader of the GC on stage 10. For 5 glorious days, Cadel Evans wore the yellow jersey. Then came stage 17, the legendary climb of Alpe d'Huez. Spanish climber Carlos Sastre of Team CSC launched a devastating solo attack. By the summit, Sastre had taken more than 2 minutes from Evans. The yellow jersey was gone. Evans still had one chance. The stage 19 individual time trial offered an opportunity to claw back time. Going into that penultimate stage, Evans needed to gain 1 minute and 34 seconds. Evans gave everything. He rode a strong time trial, but it wasn't enough. When Evans crossed the finish line, he knew the Tour was lost. For the second consecutive year, he finished 2nd. The media began asking questions. Could Cadel Evans actually win the Tour? Some questioned his tactical acumen. Others suggested he lacked the killer instinct to finish off rivals. Still, others wondered if his window of opportunity was closing. Evans felt the weight of expectations. In interviews, his frustration occasionally showed. He was proud of his achievements. 2 Tour podiums were more than most riders would achieve in a lifetime. But he also knew what could have been. The 2009 season brought more disappointment. Evans finished outside the top 20 at the Tour de France. His relationship with his team became strained. The team seemed to lose faith in his ability to win the Tour. Speculation swirled about his future. Everything changed. The 2009 Road World Championships were held in Switzerland, just 3 kilometers from where Cadel Evans lived during the European racing season. The course was technical, hilly, and suited to Evans' abilities. After a disappointing Tour de France, he needed this. The race was 262 kilometers long with 19 laps of an undulating circuit, featuring more than 4,500 meters of vertical climbing. But as the laps ticked by, a select group of 9 riders established a decisive gap on the field. Evans was in it. With 1 lap remaining, Evans made his move. On a climb he had ridden countless times in training, on roads he knew intimately, he attacked. The acceleration was decisive. The other riders couldn't respond. Evans opened a gap and soloed away. The final kilometers must have felt eternal. Evans knew he was riding to his first major championship. When Evans crossed the line, his celebration was muted. He raised a single finger, almost disbelieving. This wasn't just any victory. Evans had earned the right to wear the rainbow jersey, the distinctive bands awarded to the world champion, one of cycling's most coveted prizes. He was the first Australian to win the men's road race world championship. The victory was a vindication of Evans' career. He wasn't just a nearly man. He wasn't a perennial second-place finisher. He was a world champion. The rainbow bands proved he could win when it mattered most. In 2010, Evans signed with BMC Racing Team, a new American registered squad. BMC promised Evans complete team support, a strong roster of experienced riders, and the resources to make a serious Tour bid. The timing seemed right for one more attempt at the Tour de France. Evans was 33, still within his prime years, armed with rainbow jersey confidence, and supported by a team built around his goals. In spring 2010, Evans won La Flèche Wallonne. He also led the Giro after winning the famous mud stage, Stage 7 through dirt roads and torrential rain, where riders became unrecognizable beneath layers of mud. These victories proved that wearing the world champion's jersey hadn't diminished his abilities. The 2010 Tour de France, however, brought more disappointment. Evans finished outside the top 20, hampered by a broken elbow sustained in a crash. It seemed like the old pattern was repeating, promise followed by setback, hope followed by heartbreak. But Evans and BMC were learning. The first half of 2011 went almost perfectly. Evans won Tirreno Adriatico, a prestigious week-long stage race in Italy. He won the Tour de Romandie in Switzerland. These victories demonstrated that at 34, Evans was in the best form of his life. The 2011 Tour began on July 2nd. The Stage 2 team time trial played perfectly for BMC. They finished just 4 seconds behind Garmin-Cervelo, and Evans remained well positioned in the overall standings. The crucial mountain stages came in the Alps. Stage 18 to the Galibier would become legendary and would define Evans' tour. With 60k remaining and 2 huge climbs still to come, Schleck launched a massive attack. Within minutes, the gap began to grow. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Evans had no teammates left. None of his rivals were willing to chase. Evans had no choice but to ride tempo on the Galibier. But Cadel Evans had spent 12 years as a professional road cyclist preparing for this moment. He had suffered through 2 second-place finishes. He had endured criticism and doubt. He had lost his mentor and coach, and he was not going to give up. Evans put his head down and rode. He didn't panic. He didn't blow up. He simply rode at the maximum pace his body could produce. Kilometer by kilometer, he began to pull back time. By the final summit, Evans had limited his losses to just over 1 minute, clawing back nearly 3 minutes through sheer willpower and superior pacing. It was one of the most impressive performances in modern Tour history. The next day, Stage 19 to Alpe d'Huez became another test. On the climb, the Schleck brothers tried repeatedly to drop Evans, but Cadel refused to crack. He kept himself within striking distance. Everything came down to Saturday, Stage 20, the individual time trial in Grenoble, 42.5 kilometers that would decide the Tour de France. Evans had raced this exact course of the Dauphiné. He knew every corner, every climb, every descent. This was his moment. Andy Schleck, who led by 57 seconds, was not a strong time trialist. Evans needed to beat him by at least 58 seconds. Theoretically possible, but far from certain. When Evans rode down the start ramp, all of Australia was watching. By the first time check, Evans had already taken 36 seconds out of Schleck. Evans crossed the line in second place for the stage, just 7 seconds behind winner Tony Martin. But the stage result didn't matter. What mattered was the 2 minutes and 31 seconds he'd beaten Andy Schleck by. He'd done it. The final stage into Paris was the victory parade. Evans crossed the line on the Champs-Élysées with a final winning time of 86 hours, 12 minutes, and 22 seconds. At age 34, Cadel Evans had become the first Australian to win the Tour de France. He was the second oldest post-war winner. The celebration in Australia was unprecedented. The Prime Minister called Evans while he was trying to take a bath in his hotel. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Melbourne's Federation Square for a homecoming parade. There were genuine calls for a national holiday. Evans' victory was compared to Australia's 1983 America's Cup win, considered one of the nation's greatest sporting achievements. The 2012 season brought new pressures. Evans was now the defending Tour champion, the first Australian to wear that crown. Expectations were enormous. At the Tour, Evans struggled with stomach illness during the final week and finished 7th overall. The 2013 season brought a resurgence. At the Giro, Evans stayed in contention through difficult mountain stages affected by cold weather and snow. He ultimately finished 3rd on the podium, proof that at 36, he could still compete at the highest level of Grand Tour racing. In 2014, the Tour de France brought disappointment, with Evans finishing 39th overall. The writing was on the wall. In September 2014, Evans announced his retirement, effective in February of 2015. Even in retirement, Evans shaped Australian cycling. Evans' manager approached the Visit Victoria board about creating an annual professional race. The idea was to build on the momentum of Worlds and create a lasting legacy. Visit Victoria loved the concept, but suggested naming the race after Evans. Cadel was initially hesitant. He never loved the spotlight off the bike. But eventually, he agreed, and a Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race was born. The inaugural race in January 2015 became Evans' final professional competition. Racing for BMC on a 1-month contract specifically for this event, Evans attacked in the final kilometers, but ultimately finished 5th. It was a poignant ending, competitive to the last, but passing the torch to the next generation. The Great Ocean Road Race has since grown into a UCI level event, attracting the world's best riders to Victoria each January. Since retirement, Evans has remained active and engaged with the sport. In 2017, he partnered with George Hincapie, his key domestique for the 2011 Tour, to win the Masters category at the Cape Epic mountain bike stage race in South Africa, coming full circle to his mountain biking roots. From mountain bike world champion to road racing world champion to Tour de France winner. From devastating second-place finishes to ultimate triumph at age 34. Cadel Evans' career embodied persistence. He showed that talent without dedication achieves nothing, but dedication with talent can achieve everything. He demonstrated that setbacks are only permanent if you allow them to be. Australian cycling has produced many great champions, but none have captured the nation's imagination quite like Cadel Evans. His 2011 Tour victory gave Australia a sporting hero whose story resonated beyond the sport. A story of an ordinary kid from the outback who achieved an extraordinary dream through nothing more than hard work, intelligence, and unwavering belief. That is the legacy of Cadel Evans. If this deep dive into Cadel Evans' incredible career resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to 124 Cycling for more profiles of cycling's greatest icons. We try to go beyond the highlights to tell the complete story. Hit that bell icon so you never miss a video, and let us know in the comments who should we feature as an icon next. And if you're a fan of cycling history, check out our other videos on legends and the different races in our sport. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.